Hi, I'm Terry Lynn Arnold. I'm the founder of the IBC Network, and welcome to Talk IBC. And I have with me Katy Bowser Hutson today. And I hope I didn't butcher your name because I said it wrong when I tried the first time. I've known Katy for a very long time, and I want her to tell us talk about how we met and what she's doing because she's been someone who's inspired me with her kindness and her storytelling and songwriting. And you're a great singer. I mean, know what you don't do well. So let's just get into it, Katy.
Hi, good to see you, Sherilyn. Yeah, that sounds wonderful. I was trying to remember exactly how we met. Somebody introduced us and said I needed to talk to you. I think because I was interested in having a lymph node transfer.
I think that's
But
what it was. Now, how long ago were you diagnosed with inflammatory breast
I was
cancer?
diagnosed in 2017.
Okay, so I was 10 years before you,
Uh-huh.
and that makes sense because that's about the time all those conversations about lymph node transfers were getting to go. So let's kind of
Okay.
get into the skinny of your diagnosis and all those things beyond.
Okay. Let's see. Well, my diagnosis, I was HER2 positive. I had inflammatory breast cancer. Oh gosh, it's been a little while. I'm trying to remember like all the things that people say. It's like when you show up in some rooms now and you like give your pronouns. It's like, what are my things that I say? I was HER2 positive. Um, let's see.
What year were you? What year were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed in 2017. I had trimodal therapy through 2018. Um, After that, I did not have reconstruction. That wasn't important to me. And I also was a little stressed about the idea that that could cover up anything. I really wanted to get a full chest tattoo. I spent lots of hours dreaming about what that would look like. And I got a yes from my oncologist and a yes from my surgeon. And I got to my radiation oncologist, and she was like, maybe please don't. So in case she could see anything that was there. So those were my initial surgeries. And then I came down to MD Anderson. I did all my treatment at Vanderbilt. Which was amazing how that all worked out. I could tell the story around how that worked out beautifully. But and then I came down to MD Anderson and I got to hang out with you a little then because I went and saw Dr. Mark Victor Shavrine and had a lymph node transfer, which has been enormously helpful. I mean, just as a writer, just how about just as a right-handed human being trying to live, the lack of stress, the stress that's alleviated has been pretty great. And
I'm
that's to
glad. And
the extent.
I remember that visit, and you had your husband Kenny with you, and it was really a fun memory for me because y'all came over, and your husband and my husband played guitar for hours, and it was a blast.
That was the
Happy, happy
best.
memories along the way. But so now you and I have been in touch off and on over the years, and I have followed you as you were a writer and a songwriter and a musician before. And shockingly enough, because sometimes I think, don't you feel like they expect our lives to end? We've talked about that before, that you were still continuing on and achieving new goals.
Yeah, actually, the first book I had published was after I had cancer. I'd written lots of things. I kind of self-published some poetry, and over the years, I did a lot of songwriting, and that was my work. Yeah, playing shows and writing songs. But when I had a cancer diagnosis, okay, so a week before I found out that I had cancer, um, I went to Martha's Vineyard because I had gotten a scholarship to go study poetry for the week. It was wonderful. There's a group called the Sustainable Arts Foundation, and they were giving out grants to artists with young children, which was amazing. So I won the scholarship to go up to Martha's Vineyard for the week to go to a writing institute. And so I had just spent the whole week in workshops and working on my craft, working on my poetry, and kind of getting everything I could get done in a week before I went back to my 3 and my 6-year-old. Just getting an outline together and preparing. And I got on a ferry and went to visit friends in Boston and looked in the mirror and went, that does not look right. My breast did not look right. I hadn't noticed this on the island. I had noticed it a couple weeks before. I had noticed that my breast was angry and pink and puckered. And at the time, I thought that it was probably, I have sensitive skin, and I thought that it was probably an allergy or a summer heat rash irritation. And then it had kind of calmed down, and I hadn't noticed it while I was on the island. And then I saw it was pretty intense when I saw it in Boston. And I went to my friend who had gone on the trip with me and was like, does your breast ever do this? She's like, nope. And I Googled, like you do, and my options were pretty small for things that were really like that, like orange peel skin and hot and swollen. And so after that, I drove to Pennsylvania to pick up my kids on the way back to Nashville. And I mean, it felt important and urgent that I get in there and go do something. So I was just in Pennsylvania for a day picking up my kids. And I told my parents, hey, I'm going to go into the little local hospital and go get a mammogram if they'll let me in. And so I went in at like 4 p.m. for a mammogram, and they were annoyed. It was a very small hospital, and there was a clear sense that I was keeping somebody from playing golf.
How old were you at this time?
I turned 40. That was when I was 40. So I went in and I got a mammogram, and I would imagine this is more than one person's experience, but this woman was rather gruff with me, let me know that this was an inconvenience. And then afterwards, she started being nice.
That's a bad sign, isn't it?
It's a bad
Sometimes.
time. She started talking to me sweetly, calling me honey, told me we needed another mammogram, and then I needed to get an ultrasound. And actually, that was when I started writing, like immediately. I had been writing all week, and I was in that mode. So I grabbed my notebook. Actually, I put a poem at the end of my book that I wrote when I was in my early 20s, because I have a poem as I was praying and I was waiting for the doctor to come in to probably tell me I had cancer. And I had a line from a poem I had written in my 20s. I hadn't used any cancer imagery anywhere else ever, but I have this one line that says, it's a prayer, and it says, I will come like chemo to kill so you can live. And I went, oh, I have cancer. So I felt like a really kind little heads up before before the doctor came in. I kind of felt like I knew already. So when the doctor came in and told me, I had started writing already. I was already writing down what I thought. When I was told, I was by myself, and I had a notebook in front of me, and it was kind of a shield. I went, this is not the moment for me to have emotions. I need to tuck those away for the moment. I need to get as much information.
You're on a road trip with your children.
I was on a road
trip back to Tennessee.
I had to get back to Tennessee. I had to get in treat. It's like, okay, if I have cancer, I need all the information I can get, and I need to get home and get in treatment. I am going to have to admit, I did so much texting and driving on that trip. I was just seeing how quickly I could get in touch. How my mom came with me. So that leg, she did a lot of, I was not texting so much. I was doing a lot of calling. But yeah, I was seeing how quickly I could get in for a biopsy, and amazingly, there's so many little amazing pieces. But I called my friends from Boston because my friend was a pastor, and he had led a Bible study at the Mayo Clinic. I was like, hey, I just looked this up, and I found 3 IBC centers that are covered by my insurance. And Mayo is one of them. Do you know anyone at Mayo? He's like, well, I know the head of women's oncology. So that was good. So he called me up the next day and was like, how can I help? And he had a research companion, what's the word? Research partner at Vanderbilt, who he said he can do everything that I can do here. So I had a great oncologist at Vanderbilt, and she was all over it. Yeah, so I had a team. It was all super fast, super furious. Look, I'm rambling because you got me back in this,
Oh,
Terry.
I feel like I'm walking along with you
Yeah.
in that memory.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I went from just getting as much information as I could back to my house where I saw my parents and just bawled and called my husband first and just bawled. And then went back and cried. Wasn't going to cry because my kids were there, but my dad was already crying. Yeah, Colonel Bowser was already crying. So yeah, and then I explained it to my kids. Explaining that to a 6-year-old, you need to have like a whole session on what it's like to talk to your kids. Do you have one on how to talk to your kids about this?
We've had them, and we need to have more. Unfortunately, we need to have more.
Yeah, it was. I I remember my daughter's name is Story. My son was too young to really get much. I said, Story. She said, "Why is Grandpa crying?" And I said, I am sick. I said, I have cancer. Cancer is a sickness that's in my body. And I don't feel sick right now, Story, but it's bad for me and I have to get it out. And so to do that, the doctors are going to give me medicine that's going to make me feel sick, to make me better. And my hair's going to fall out. And she laughed because she's like, what in the world? What in the world? Which is just the best 6-year-old response. It's like, what is this? And yeah, what is this ridiculous business we're about to go through? Um, yeah, so I told them all that. We raced back, got a couple of biopsies, and we were off to the races. So yeah,
You
that's
know,
kind of
well, I know you had, as I remember, a good response to treatment.
I did.
You're still well today. And I know your interest in the bypass surgery was because around that time, lymphedema bypasses were being talked about, and it
Mhm.
was kind of a new thing, and they didn't know. But how is your arm doing now?
It's great. And I think, okay, so tell me if this is the same or different. So there's lymphovenous bypass where there's the coupling of lymph and veins. And I think I had what you had approximately a lymph node transfer, a vascularized lymph node transfer.
I've actually had every single surgery available in
Oh,
this.
that's right.
It's all been unfolding in real time. I know. I'm such a little
Okay.
overachiever because back when they first started, for those of you that can see this on our YouTube channel, and I've got these tiny little cuts that you could barely even see, that there's a couple of places where they connected those nodes where there was blockage, they reconnected. That is a bypass. But then later, I had node transfers, and I've had a couple of node transfers. But I think you were fortunate that the bypasses were enough for you.
Well,
Me, I think,
the transfer was enough for me. I only did a transfer.
oh, you did a
So
transfer.
they went in through my belly button. They took 30 lymph nodes from my omentum. I remember him saying, they took out 13. We're going to put in 30. We're going to supercharge you.
Wow.
I was a little bummed because I thought that I was going to have a tummy tuck with this. And apparently that wasn't what they were teaching, whoever they were teaching at the time. And they were like, this is much less invasive. I'm like, fine, make it much less invasive. But I was kind of excited at the thought. Um,
Well, I know, but I'm glad that lymphedema is under control because people is something I think we need to talk a lot more about. And I know sometimes people say they don't want to go through treatment because they're afraid of getting lymphedema, and I would never risk my life over not such a thing. But
oh
I'm going to
yeah,
talk a lot more about lymphedema, and that we could about that all day. Okay, so you're doing well. You're trying to
yeah.
get back to that whole new normal thing, which is sort of a trigger place for me about what's a new normal. And
Uh-huh.
also, too, when you're in the place of survivorship, which is something I don't want to not give appropriate due because many don't survive, it's weird for me how I don't call myself a survivor. I say I'm surviving because I have issues, but I did survive cancer. I have issues, but also, too, I think we kind of get stuck there. And this is something I talked about before we started. Like for
Uh-huh.
me, if someone's best friend's dog cousin in Zimbabwe gets cancer, I get a phone call.
Yeah.
But I don't get invited to the birthday parties because I'm a little bit of a reminder of something scary, even though I'm well. But also, too, I think, or if I used to own a bookstore, and I said to somebody, I really would like to open a bookstore again. They go, should you do that? You've had cancer. How is it for you? Because you're a lot younger than me. And now that you're on that kind of that other side of it, being on that survivor side or navigating future goals, because at 40 years old, you're still a very young woman. I wish I'll get my diagnosis. Thank God I'm an old lady now. I want you to be an old lady, but
I'm
one
48
day
now. I'm getting there. Yeah.
we'll catch up and I'll keep going. But the thing is, though, how do we do this? Because I think it's something I know you're willing to do a writer's workshop with us in Nashville at the Ultimate Meetup. I'm very excited about that. I think you're going to have a lot to lend to the conversation of how do we go? How do we keep going? How do we not let the fear come in? But how do
Yeah.
we still have hopes and dreams and accomplish goals
Yeah.
past?
Okay. Can I read a short poem?
Please.
Okay.
And by the way, one of my favorite treasures is a handmade book you made me, your very first published book. It's got this beautiful red cover,
Yep.
and
That was
it's
the
in a
first one.
place of honor in my house. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Terry Lynn. Well, after that we published we published Now I Lay Me Down to Fight. And it looks like this. Kind of if you're looking at the sky.
I have that one too.
Yes, you get all of them. You get all of them forever. You were just quickly, you were very special and very important to me in the process. I remember when we got in touch, I remember you calling me and saying, how do I not know about you yet? Because you knew everybody, you found everybody with inflammatory breast cancer. And I just remember, I think I was at that point, like I think we talked by the time I got to radiation, and you were like, how do I not know about you already? Because
Well,
you're
I'm
like a
glad we
mother hen
connected.
and you gather us all up. And yeah, you have been over and over again such a friend and such an ally. So thank you. Okay, so poem here. This is called Eraser. And this is pertinent to the conversation, and I'll chat about it. Um, Losing my hair, no big deal, really. Eyelashes, on the other hand, scared me. The shadows, the depth of my face erased, blanking me out. Blankety blank cancer, already attempting to flatten me into a one-dimensional character. I have other stories to tell. I have things to do. I'm a beauty bearer. Where you, cancer, copy furiously, I fumblingly create. You cannot uncreate me. I was so frustrated with the idea that cancer could become my identity. It was annoying. It's like, yes, we have to talk about it. Yes, I could die. And yeah, it has to be a forefronted conversation. But I'm Katy. Things that are true about Katy are that I like to write. I like to talk about ideas. I like to talk about God. I like to talk about what in the world is going on around here. I like to be with my friends. I like to play. And the idea that cancer was the most interesting thing about me was exhausting and annoying.
I'm going to stop you there for a second because you are singing my song. You have no idea because one of the things that was so weird for me was losing my hair wasn't a big deal. And when you say losing your eyelashes, what I found hard about having cancer is I didn't recognize myself anymore.
Yeah.
I was not overweight for cancer. I bloated up like a balloon. My skin turned green. I looked like a whole different person. I didn't recognize myself. What was weird is as I got better, which didn't lose all the weight I gained in cancer, and my hair looked so different, and I looked so different. I would go through the grocery store and people didn't recognize me.
Man,
But
yeah.
also, what I realized, it's almost like they made me into a different person. They made me into their cancer friend. And I wanted to be Terry Lynn Arnold, the woman who has all kinds of passion and interest and drive and 100 million things I want to do. I was telling my husband the other day, I think I'm going to have to live to be about 150 to do all the things I want to do. And he goes, well, okay, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Because I'm so not done. But I felt like people were like, and I am super grateful to be alive because I know many don't make it. But I felt like I was being put in a box
Uh-huh.
and I didn't get to be anything else.
Yeah.
So when you
We,
said erasing me, like in the poem you just read, the book is Now Lay Me Down to Fight.
Yeah.
What's the name of that poem?
It's called Eraser.
Would you read that one part again? It's not a very long poem. You even read the whole thing again, because that
Yeah.
was very moving.
Oh, thanks. Here, I'll read it again because I'm not sure. Yeah, it's short.
It's not
Um,
long.
yeah, losing my hair, no big deal, really. Eyelashes, on the other hand, scared me. The shadows, you can stop me too if you know where the part is.
Oh,
The,
it's
de-
go for it.
the depth of my face erased, blanking me out, blankety blank cancer, already attempting to flatten me into a one-dimensional character. I have other stories to tell. I have things to do. I'm a beauty bearer. Where you, cancer, copy furiously, I fumblingly create. You cannot uncreate me. See, one of the things about like the actual nature of cancer is it's dumb. Like it replicates and replicates. It's not making anything new. It's a copycat. Um, and the nature of me is I create. I am made to
You said a
create.
beauty bearer. What a beautiful term, and you are
Yeah.
someone who creates. You create art and music and all that vibrancy. And I felt like I was being erased. I was being flattened. I was being made into a one-dimensional thing. And what was hard for me was not losing my hair. What was hard for me was my brain went to mush.
Yeah.
And I have two very beautiful sisters, and I don't mean this in a bad way. They were always the beautiful ones, and I was the smart one. And all of a sudden, I wasn't the smart one, which meant I even lost more identity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That was so hard.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, uh, I mean, I wrote my way through, but one thing that's nice about poetry is it's a short form. So I recommend it if you, so for one thing, if you're trying to get your story down, just get your feelings out, just get all the things from pinging around in you, poetry is good for that. Um, because it's short. And that's kind of nice. But yeah, same
Don't you
here.
think if you find, sorry to interrupt, but don't you think if you
Okay.
find a way to process your thoughts, I've been told before our brain is something that hasn't evolved. That if they think there's danger, they think it's a bear. And if you're not paying attention to the bear, it keeps tapping on your body saying, hey, hey. And then the anxiety. And so you literally have to tell yourself out loud and maybe tap as you do it, tap your body to say, hey, I'm paying attention. I
Yes.
understand. I am safe. There is not a bear. Calm down. Okay.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm prone to nightmares. And if I ignore what is bothering me, the
Uh-huh.
nightmares are worse that night. I have learned if I say it out loud or write it down, if I don't want to say it out loud, and I don't maybe want somebody to find it, so I will literally tear it all up in a million pieces. But just the act of writing it down makes that anxiety go away.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay, so I just wrote a thing on my Substack about prayer. It was about how to tell things to God, but also but also just to say something, period. Apart from telling it to God, apart from telling it to anyone. I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of telling things to God and telling things to people who love you. But for that matter, just I wrote this list about of 42 things, and I was like, write it down and tie it to a bottle rocket and send it off. Take it on a piece of paper and put a seed in it and plant it in the ground. Write it on your hand, but like get it out of you. You know, don't like those things sit there and can kind of just get all stuck in you, and that anxiety makes everything harder. You're still, I mean, of course, it's not going to make it all better, but you have some control over it. If you fling it out of you and you have the words and you start putting words around it, it gives you a measure of control and of knowing what's going on, and it helps. And not only it's not that you can just catch it, but you understand what's actually going on better. You
I
understand what's
think
going on. Uh-huh.
think if we learn how to talk to ourselves about these hard things too, we can pay it forward by how we talk to somebody else to maybe ease their load a little bit of
Yeah.
lessons learned. And I found that difficult with, I had a lot of great friends who took care of me, but some of the ones who had cancer, before me had something that wasn't nearly as dangerous. And so they were like, oh, it's a bump in the road. I'm like, no, I'm really trying hard not to die here. So I think, and not to, lessen anyone's experience, it's all horrible for everybody. But if we can learn how to talk to ourselves, then we can pay it forward and we can better equip. Because I asked somebody once who was very wealthy, how do you measure success? Because often we measure success in wealth and the people younger than us. I thought, this woman's so rich, her kids will never do better than her. And she said she measures success in wisdom and kindness gained generationally. And
Ooh,
I
ooh.
know, can you write that down? I would listen to write about that because the thing is, I thought, yes, if I can give my children more knowledge and and I love that you call yourself a beauty bearer. I got goosebumps thinking about that. What a
Oh,
lovely thing.
hmm.
And you are, and
Thank
you
you.
are a beauty bearer. So I love the way you wrote that up about the things that cancer is trying to make you be versus who you knew you were and who you wanted to be later.
Yeah. Can I share another poem? Because
Please.
it's a similar thought. Okay, so it's called Cancer Poet. Um, you know what kudzu is, right? Y'all have kudzu in Texas? The plant that like destroys everything. We call them kudzillas when kudzu like takes over everything. Mm. Do you get dry mouth from cancer, by the way? Dag
Yes.
nabbit. I
And
think
my
I
eyes
should have.
still stream. They
Yeah,
stream. So
yeah.
I got places that are dry and places that are wet.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so this one said it's called Cancer Poet. Cancer is an overgrowth, a kudzu, tangling and strangling legitimate life. Chemo is a killing, a burning out, burning down to ashy carbon indiscriminately. But cancer, did you know that I am a poet? My job is to cull through the chaos with tweezers and magnifier. I have wings on shoulder blades and ankles, just big enough for hovering me inches above the terrain, traversing without smothering my subject. With pen and pocket and fingers and eyes, I cipher meaning, siphoning liquid beauty that seeps from the edges into a tiny vial. Taking pains with my pain, it fruits sweetly. If in this year's ravaging I eke an ounce of beauty, it will outweigh all of your ashy remnant. I can paste it on my footsoles and stick me to the incinerated earth, where I will wait for the rich loam, tear soaked and fertile, to live. That is what poets do, Cancer. And it is important to me. It was important to me in the middle of it. Um, if you sit there and you just stare at the cancer and you stare into the void, it will suck you in. Um, Looking out and seeing what is good and what is beautiful, those things are still true. It's not pretending it's not going on. I mean, also, yeah, is it Dylan Thomas? Rage against the dying of the light. Rage, yeah, rage against death. Work hard against it. Get mad at it when you can't do anything about it because you can't just make cancer go away. I'm not trying to say. I was on a podcast last week with a really cool woman, Liz O'Riordan, this wonderful woman who's talked about cancer. And she's like, I don't know if I like all of your battle imagery because I don't want people to think that you, she's like, I don't like talking about winning or losing against cancer because it's not like it's your fault. It's not like you did something or that you can fix it. And I was like, well, I hear you, but I like my book is called Now I Lay Me Down to Fight. I guess it's kind of a paradox because you do have to kind of you have to kind of lay down and take it a lot of the time and take the but you don't have to take it without still like grabbing for life with everything you've got, you know? Like you want to do a bookstore. I mean, I love it. Like all those things that were true about you before, like keep your identity, keep those things as best you can and find out, I don't know if it's an opportunity, see like maybe like take the moment to say, what do I really love? You know?
No, and it's interesting about the battle language because it is uncomfortable because some people feel like there's some judgment. She lost her fight,
Yeah.
that kind of mentality where
Yeah.
people sometimes say, when you're not doing well, we'll just pray harder or do this, like,
Ugh.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's some kind of magic Santa Claus or whatever.
Yeah. Not
And
fair.
sometimes the treatment just doesn't work. And I know in some ways I don't feel like I fought. In some ways I got fortunate the treatment worked, but it doesn't mean it wasn't hard. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean it almost didn't kill me a couple of times because it really almost did.
Yeah.
Um, and there was some resolve there, but I also feel very blessed that I'm well. But then again, just using that word blessed, I have a friend who she wasn't doing well, and she was a pastor's wife, and she said, "So God doesn't love me anymore." And I said, "This is a complicated conversation because I don't feel that she
She's
was
still blessed too.
abandoned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel that she was abandoned, and I don't feel that I was favored. And I use the word blessed out of a form of gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude. But like we so when you talk about fight language, when we're grateful to be a survivor, and since you're a wordsmith, how does that make you feel? Do we get stuck there and lose our identity to a certain level?
Like if we stay there and that's all we talk about, or that's all we think about.
Kind of.
I mean, I think you can get stuck in that if that feels like it becomes the overriding thing that's true about you. I mean, I get it. And that if you've had a life and death struggle, um, that is worth celebrating. And if you're in the middle of it, is worth, yeah, of course it's important. But if you're surviving, what are you surviving for? What is it that you are holding on for? What do you
Well,
want to
I see women, and they're wearing their t-shirts all those years later, and I'm grateful they're well all those years later. And I know they're giving hope. But it's interesting to me that I see some women, they're wash pink head to toe, 24/7, and that's all they talk about. And I think it's because it is such a big goal. Maybe we're afraid to let that conversation go for fear that cancer would slip back up. But what I'm trying to figure out is, where is the beyond? And not that it's not a huge part of me. I've got scars all over my body that remind me every day. And I
Mhm.
have various physical issues that remind me every day. But
Yep.
also, too, I want to be the beyond. I honestly don't want my obituary to mention cancer. I wanted to say I'm a woman who loved God, loved my husband, loved my family, and tried to do good in the community. Because
Yeah.
I've tried to do good outside of cancer. I've done a lot of other big things in my life. I've told my husband, this sounds weird to say, I don't want a eulogy because I know someone's going to get there and talk about cancer. And it's like, that is not what I want to be remembered for at all.
Uh-huh.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Cancer's the thing that tried to mess it all up. It is the
Yeah.
uninvited guest. So to give it that much real estate in your life, more than you have to give it. Um, so I'm writing my next book, and it's not about cancer. Um,
Yay.
I mean, so Liz O'Riordan, yeah, I'm excited about it. Like Liz has made a career out of it, and it makes sense because she was a breast surgeon before, and she has seen both sides, and she has so many things that are helpful. And so that is what she writes about. But I was writing before I had cancer, and now I want to write about play. And it's interesting. It actually, cancer was kind of a springboard into it because I learned how play and playing with God were a real thing that happened it at the bottom of things. It's like, oh, this is still true when I'm wondering if I'm gonna die. And so that got real interesting. And that's what I've been really chewing on for years here. It's been real fun for me. But thank you for the springboard, cancer. But you are not actually the first impetus for it, and you're not going to make it onto the front page of my book. You're not the big idea. Um, it was a space that where that kind of grew. But yeah, no, there's so many. I don't. Okay, so I'm a writer and a speaker, and when people ask me to speak about cancer, I will, because I am grateful and it helps other people. Um, but when I do talk about cancer stuff, it's hard. It wears me out and it takes me back there. And so when I do it, I know that I'm doing it out of a giving place because it takes something out of me. So to continue to live in that space is exhausting. And I'm amazed that you have done as much advocacy as you have, because I know that takes a toll.
It does, but it's interesting because lately the talks I've been given, and I hope I get more speaking opportunities because it changed a lot in the pandemic. But the ones I've done in the last year, when people ask me to come talk about cancer, I say I will. But then I come at it with a completely different angle. And
Huh.
I say, these are the things I'm supposed to tell you that you expect me to say,
Yeah.
but this is what I'm going to tell you. So get ready. And they're like, what? I'm not going to give it away here. Maybe people will book me and then
Yeah, no,
they'll
I
hear
can't
it.
wait.
But they have sort of an expectation that you're supposed to say things of gratitude and rally your troops and do all the things and get your posse together. Well, a lot of us don't have posses, or we're have other issues in our life. My husband shattered his arm in a ridiculous accident not long after I got through treatment. So I was busy taking care of him. And I know women who said my husband got diagnosed a month before me, a month after me, or they had a kid had something. We're
Yep.
not all just sitting on a pillow with all these things available to us, eating salmon because they all think somehow salmon cures cancer. Haven't you
I
heard
love
all that?
salmon, but it doesn't
Who
cure
knew?
cancer.
And so anyway, but it's like so I'll come in and go, here's what I'm supposed to tell you. And I give
Yeah.
them a quick skinny, and then I go, but this is what I want to tell you, and I've had good feedback. But I hope that people will come to the ultimate meetup in Nashville because I think it's great. I know you came before and seemed to get something out of it.
I
I'm excited
did.
you want to be with us to do a little mini writer's introduction.
That
And I
sounds
hope they look for
delightful.
your next books because I've enjoyed your poetry very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
How do you want to end this today? Because I think we've been talking a good long while, and people can look for you. And the book that you
Yeah.
read from was Now I Lay Me Down to Fight, which I love that
Mhm.
title. But what are the other titles?
Oh, I have a little children's book. If people want to see what I'm doing now, I would love if they want to follow. I'm on Substack, and it's Katy Plays, Katy Plays, Plays, and I'm talking about play now. And I actually think it's a really good place to go if I don't know, if you've been dealing with cancer, because I'm digging into what play is and why it matters and what attributes of play are. And those things feel like a really good thing to have. I read The Body Keeps the Score during cancer, and some of this kind of springs out of that. But the way you think about things, and the way you look at them, and even in heavy places, levity or a sense of curiosity, really can change how it can change everything about how you look at your life. So this book is going to
Yes.
kind of be a workbook and an art piece. It's going to have poetry and essays and lots of illustrations. Yeah, I would love for people to find me there. And
We will share those links in all of this, so hopefully people can find you because there's no expression you can't pour from an empty cup. And if we don't find things to give us joy, to renew us, then we don't have things to give.
yeah,
And I know different people find renewal different ways, but I think it's something we need to learn to cultivate so we can be all the things we're meant to be.
yeah. And also stick around with, yeah, I mean, I could not be a bigger fan of the IBC Foundation. Just stick close to Terry Lynn because she knows what's going on. And I would have, if people are listening to this podcast, I would imagine there are already people hanging around the crew at the IBC Foundation, but that was an enormous support on a very practical level, on an emotional level. That you guys provided information, like cutting edge information and deep emotional help that other people just didn't know about. you're an invaluable
That means
resource.
a lot to me. It means a lot to me because I was really hesitant to start a charity, but when I started realizing there was a niche, and I thought, okay, this is something
Yeah,
I can do, and I'm grateful. Well, I love you. I love
I
talking
love
to
you
you.
too.
I love your family. I cannot wait to see you in Nashville this October. And thank you
I
for being with
know.
us today.
I'm so glad to be with you, Cherry Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you so much.